In the foreground, you see Paul artwork. They're painting the perfect portrait picture of your main man. So real that I come to life and speak to you even from the canvas. Now go check his channel out. Subscribe for his SMR role-playing videos. Paul artwork on YouTube. Now, your main man is out here in nature, in the serenity and tranquility of this windswept early morning, to talk to you about monster ecologies, nymphs. Now, nymphs are often a classically misused monster in Dungeons and Dragons and in other fantasy games. A monster that you even rarely see in games like A World of Darkness, where you have fairies in either version edition, often very unlike to be used, often very generic, often mislabeled. Now, there's a multitude and score of nymphs. Now, what is a nymph? Nymphs are from Greek mythology. Nymphs are a minor nature deity of femininity. Nymphs are of ponds, of forests, of groves of trees, of meadows, of glens, of valleys, of mountains and hills, of the ocean, of the sky. Nymphs are of the underworld, and they are encountered again and again through Greek mythology with Pan and Dionysus and Hecate and Artemis. We see nymphs so often portrayed in a variety of ways, and nymphs can also even be fearsome, horrifying warriors wielding bows or daggers, particularly with Artemis wielding torches in underworld as lampads. And there are many, many, many different types: Oreads, Dryads, Hammer Dryads, lampads. There are a tremendous amount of different nymphs that factor in at that lower level of divinity. Remember, in mythology, in the mythological cycles, there are many, 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 many kinds of divinity. The things that were above us, above mortals, above humans, and in mythology, giants and trolls, titans, nymphs, elves, dwarves. So many things had that minor spark of divinity in them to allow them to exist differently in other worlds and other aspects, to really provide a tremendous difference in that overall cosmology. It's not just gods. And we so often get, in many fantasy games, confused that gods and divinities are entirely the same thing. Gods are merely a form and fashion, a race of the divine. And nymphs are there on that lower echelon. Now, and Within the Ring of Fire, which you can get on Drive-Thru RPG right now, you can get PDF bundles. Hit your main man up, get your PDF bundles and save your money. Get all the books released for Within the Ring of Fire. Hit your main man up on Main Man on Facebook and join Raw Immersive Games group and talk about that Within the Ring of Fire. There are going to be 7 in Monsters and Men. 7 different races of nymphs that are playable to characters. I know a lot of people out there like nymphs. A lot of people like to play the scions of nymphs. An advantage will allow you to do that as well, which gives you a tremendous amount of multitudes of different vast sort of character options for your catalyst to burn your mind. Now, also in the book I've written, Feywild, there is a prominent character who is a Nixad, a nymph of darkness, a nymph that's bonded from Cinder and Aramon, and she is in the book. I'm not going to tell you more about that, but get Feywild, the novel for Within the Ring of Fire, and learn the setting like the back of your own mind. Now, we see nymphs many, many times over, often used simply as a seductive, coy thing that's demure and is there to inspire bad sexual elements in a game that lie limp and flat, that have little real value overall, or simply, oh, go and do this quest for me. And it's really very rarely I've ever seen a nymph played well in a game. So I was running, and I think that they're a creature type that has a lot of value, a lot of things that you can do. And remember, how horrifying is it if you're being hunted down by Artemis and her pack of nymphs with bows drawn and ready and chasing you? that's a terror. If you're changed into a swine and ripped apart by dogs, and you pay the price just the way you always do, that's certainly something to be said for nymphs, for an embodiment of the elemental aspect of nature, of what they personify, of the rocks, of the soil, of the wood, of the water. And a nymph can be that. It can be of any part, above the earth, on the earth, in the water, under the earth, in the flame. And when you use that sort of idea and you bring across the nymphs, you'll certainly see them in a different way. Certainly, if you pick up Monsters Men, you're going to see nymphs in a different way than you have in other role-playing games, in a more true to form, classically inspired manner that is going to bring that subject home and is going to give you the idea to be able to use them across the board in other fantasy games and in other real-world games where you can just as easily bring all sorts of other fey creatures, and nymphs certainly fit into those courts, into those areas, into those ideas and aspects as something that can bring across an interesting character. And they have that. They're not all the same thing. It's not simply one. Even in Dungeons and Dragons, they supply several different kinds of nymphs. They name one of them Nymph. They name one of them Dryad. They name one of them Oread, and I think there's maybe two or three more over the years that have been put into Dungeons and Dragons books. I don't know if they've ever put a Lampad in there. It would not surprise me, though I do not readily recall such a thing. There's one within the Ring of Fire, though, and that's certainly something that you want to look at when you're playing a nymph. This creature is probably very, very old, though she looks young and nubile, and she's very alluring and attractive and sexual and sensual, and she inspires the arousal of the male characters and probably the female characters too, if we're to be quite honest about it. That lust, that innocence, that overwhelming otherworldly aspect and appeal and appearance can certainly bring across a tremendous distinction of this is something different, this is something special, this is something worth fighting for. And when you can inspire the characters just under that, oh look, the nymphs have been put upon, have been done wrong, and then they're like, man, I gotta give me a nymph, I've fallen in love with her. And you can tell those romantic sort of stories right there, and you can paint that picture. You don't want to do it limp, you don't want to do it flat, you want to build it to a crescendo, to bring crashing down, or perhaps to simply you could have the nymphs play them and encourage that infatuation, that infection of love inside them, only to find them in the end dashed of their hopes. The nymphs can also play the role of the villain, unsuspecting. The nymphs could seduce and connive and convince, manipulate the players to turn against one another, to turn against a local force that isn't evil, that's not bad. In fact, that it might be heroic or good, that they otherwise wouldn't. But the nymphs, with careful placed word, can get them thinking in another way. Nymphs are incredibly charismatic, with awe and appeal and draw, so powerful and potent that you might not even be able to look upon them without losing your mind, without losing your sight. And those sort of things that you bring across the fact of this is the most utterly beautiful thing that you've ever seen, and it electrifies you, and it gets your heart pumping and starting and pushing, and a desire for ownership, for conquest, for dominance, for love, for submission, for worship of her and her divine aspect, her feeling, her femininity. And you gotta bring that over, you gotta push it, you gotta bring over that aspect true to life. Just like Paul Artworks making your main man true to life right here in this picture. You want to bring that across like a gentle summer breeze caressing your flesh and rolling along your skin. And you smell it in your nose, and you remember it deep in the back of your mind, that bass calling, that face that compels and propels your soul, your energy, the engine of you, that elevation, that next level, to grasp and reach for something that is divine, that is more than you are on a molecular level. They're better than you, and that can be terrifying, and it can be alluring, and it can provide that base for a truly sinister villain in a completely different way of manipulation. She doesn't need to fight you. She just has you doing just what she wants, wrapped around her finger, worshiping her, corrupting you. And that can place those wonderful stories of player against player, when you build and build and build to a crescendo, or if the nymph is infecting and getting one, and perhaps another sees what's really going on. Perhaps you have a female character who has no sexual appetite or interest in that arena. Or you have a male character who doesn't, for whatever reason. Perhaps he's a eunuch, perhaps he's homosexual, perhaps he goes in a different way, or is of some species that might possibly not be attracted to anything even vaguely mammalian. And you can see it with those eyes, see the manipulations there, and provide particularly interesting, compelling stories of tragedy, of romance, of gloom, of sorrow, or of elevation. And perhaps that manipulation goes two ways, and the nymph in her own games falls in love with you.